grind. On this podcast, we'll talk about law enforcement, social networking, and just life. And as everybody there on YouTube can see, I'm in a little different setting. I'm inside my house today. I'm not out in my little booth that I built. Basically because it's right at 100 degrees with a heat index of about 109 in my shop. So decided I didn't want to sweat down while I was doing this today, and so I just moved it here in the house where it's nice and cool and comfortable. And you're probably going to hear a little noise in the background. I've got a little weenie dog that likes to bark at everything. So occasionally she may tear something up and there's nothing there. So when you hear that noise, it's her. So today we're probably going to hit all three of my main topics there. Just, life, social media, and law enforcement. We'll start off with law enforcement. I mean, we've all seen how this is going today. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's very hard to do the job because, everybody's hands have been tied. I did have to laugh at a post. I think it was on TikTok that I was watching. A law enforcement officer was on there, and he said that he had got assigned that day to a special event, and he said it was a protest. He said, I have no problems with protests. They're legal, and as long as they're civil, great. His problem with this protest and having to go to it, it was a protest over defunding the police. And this was the very police department he worked for, but they called the police department because they wanted the police present so they would feel safe. Well, what do you think defunding the police is going to do for you? If you defund them and you want to do another little protest or rally or whatever you want to call it, and there's nobody there to show up. Whose fault's that? I just found this one comical. This guy did too. He had a really good sense of humor about it. He was laughing it off, but it's just the irony of it. What are you thinking? You're going to tell me you want to stop paying me, but you want my help? Come on. And I have 100% respect for all these guys and men and women that are still trudging forward, doing the job, going out to do what they've pledged to do every day in the face of all this. Because, I've told many people, my temperament, I don't know, would handle all this. It's amazing to me that how much people are able to get away with now, and the police have no recourse. They can do nothing back. It's just crazy how far one way this has gone. So I did laugh at another post I saw. It was, I'm assuming it was a protest or a rally. And this officer, who happened to be black, had a guy in custody, had him cuffed up, that's wearing a Black Lives Matter t-shirt. And that guy was white. Which, of course, there was some real snarky remark at the top of this, which I laugh about it because I have no problems with it. Yeah, it's ironic that it's a Black Lives Matter shirt and it's a black officer arresting a white guy. But here's the deal. Where everybody else is seeing the color issue there, I see an officer probably arresting somebody that's causing trouble. I don't care that he's white, black, yellow, whatever. The color is not important in that instance. If it's the person causing the problem, take care of it. And he did. It was just one of those ironic deals. And then another video that I've seen here recently, and I'm assuming this one's probably going viral. Somebody sent it to me, and I want to say this officer was out of Connecticut, someplace up northeast New England area. And man, he must have been having a bad day. He flat shorted out on this guy. It was a hilarious video because this guy just had a flat meltdown on him and then didn't arrest him, sent him on his way. But if you get a chance to watch it, it's about 5 minutes long, but if you get a chance to watch it, you gotta watch. It's great. I will warn you, there's a lot of language in it, so you might want to put your earphones in before you take off watching that one, just so the little ones don't hear these bad words. So as you guys obviously probably noticed, I'm not real politically driven. I really kind of stay away from those topics for the most part. On the side, I'm taking one side or the other because I'm one of these guys. I like to listen to both sides and form my own opinion. Now, as for all the protests that are going on, I don't have a problem with protesting. Protesting is something that's a very useful tool sometimes. It gets people heard. Now, when these people are protesting and they're making some outrageous demands, defunding police. Yeah, I think that's not useful at all. There are some things that they try to do and try to change that are not useful to the public as a whole. Now, if you want some reform in police, I don't have a problem with that. If you want more training in certain areas, I have no problem with that. But as to go out and destroy property as part of the protest, that's no longer protesting, that's rioting. Many people has described it as terrorism. Well, it in a sense is. You're destroying somebody else's property because you don't agree with what it stands for. Well, you know, that's what this country's built on is, okay, I don't agree with what you stand for, but give me your opinion of it and tell me why you're there. Maybe you can convince me, maybe you can't. But that's the beauty of a democracy, that we get the choice and we can make our own decisions on what we choose to believe and what we choose to follow and do. So I did see a news article, program, whatever you want to call it, a little story on the news. They were talking about Facebook and old Zuckerberg. And they were coming down on him because of the way they were, I don't know, filtering comments that Trump has said. You know, here's what it comes down to. Their media too, Facebook is, because when they pick and choose what can be shown, what can't, I mean, they're regulating your freedom of speech. They're saying you can't say this, but you can say that. You can't talk about this, but you can talk about that. And for that matter, YouTube's no different. I mean, they do the same thing. There are certain things we're not supposed to talk about the pandemic on YouTube. They don't want you giving out false information. I get that, but you know, we're all educated people. We will be able to figure out what's right and what's wrong and what good we can take from it and what we can't. So for them to sit there and say it's okay for you to talk about this and not about that, you know, they're regulating it too. They're no better or worse than the media when it comes to that. Now I say no better, no worse. I'm going to say better because the actual media, not only do they tell you what you can and can't do, they also put their spin on it and why it should be this way, which is irritating. I mean, it's driven us to the point that we really don't watch it for that anymore. I watch the news now for the weather. I want to know what it's going to be. So whenever you hear me on here talking and I say the pandemic or the virus, I don't use the actual name of it for a reason, because I know those are trigger words for YouTube, and their little search engines will go through there and find it, and they'll turn off that video immediately. So I just don't go deep into it. I don't talk a lot about it for that reason, because I don't want them to feel like I'm trying to circumvent their rules, which I'll play by. I'm fine with it. So on to that, I am going to talk about it a little bit. I mentioned a little last week. I mean, clearly we've reopened too soon. So now the problem of it is I've noticed in Texas, they are closing bars back down. They're closing many of those kind of businesses back down simply because of the close quarters that people are in. Now, I still don't get a lot of it, why they can shut one thing down and not another, because go to Walmart, go to the grocery store. What kind of social distancing do we have there? And I don't know if it's the same everywhere. Obviously, it's not the same everywhere, but in Oklahoma, you can go about anywhere and say at Walmart, and the parking lot's full. You'll see maybe 4 masks in the whole place. Nobody's wearing them. I mean, and they're not even really trying to social distance. I don't know if they think we're immune here or what. I do know our cases have gone up like 150% since summer started. And we're not through the roof by any means. I mean, I think we got 18 or 19 cases in our small county, which is minute compared to the number of people that live here. But the thing of it is we've all seen how it grows and how quick it can go. You know, it could just take one wild weekend and half the county's got it. And I understand many people are upset and griping about the government coming in and putting their twist on it and taking control of it, saying you can and can't do this, you need to stay home, you can't go there. Well, here's the thing. No, I don't like being totally controlled, but they've tried leaving it to the people. We see how that works. It doesn't. Too many of the people just disregard whatever dangers are out there and just go ahead and do whatever they want to do. That has got us nowhere. That has got us now to where they had it slowing down across the nation and they started opening things back up. Now it's spiking through the roof because they've let people do what they wanted to do and they've done no real recourse. I'm afraid they're really going to have to come in and just crack down on all this stuff and really shut places down, put fines out for people that don't close, and just make us do it. So I don't want that, but do I think that's probably going to be where it's headed? Yeah, because people as a whole won't do this on their own. We've seen it. So I don't know. I just know I'm like everybody else. I'm ready for it to be over because I'm ready for things to go back to normal everywhere. And the other development that's came about, which nobody should be shocked by, is that Europe is restricting travel to and from the United States to there. Well, now you hear people griping and crying about this, but what did the United States do? We did the same thing to many other countries when all this started because we weren't the hot spot yet. Now we are one of the hottest spots in the world. Why wouldn't they restrict travel to our country? Why would they want us bringing it to them? I don't blame them. But you do hear people griping about it, and I think it's ironic that it's okay for us to do that to people, but it's not okay for them to do that to us. You know, it's just another one of our hypocrisies in this nation that we think we're so above everybody that we get to do whatever we want, but they can't do what they want. And don't misinterpret that last statement. This is the greatest country in the world and I would live nowhere else. This is where I want to be. But I just find it funny that people are in such an uproar over this. Because here's the deal, you shouldn't be traveling anywhere. I mean, the airlines, I bet they're going to go back into totally closing it up because we can't be in that close proximity with people. Because the people won't listen and do what needs to be done for the social distancing. I don't know. I don't know the answers, obviously, but what we're doing is not it. So here's just kind of a little interesting one that I think my wife and I are about to do. And I know some people who have done this. We're fixing to cut DirecTV. We're fixing to just cut it out, and we're going to go straight streaming. So, I mean, because now there's a lot of these things like Sling, Hulu. There's a lot of them you can actually get your live TV through them for a fraction of the cost. I don't think I'm not sure which direction we're going yet. We've been looking hard at Sling, but we realize that there's only certain channels that we ever watch. We don't need 300 channels, and most of them don't ever get watched by us. And we're paying premium for DirecTV. I mean, it's like $160. It's crazy. And we can do the streaming thing for like 30. So if this is something you've done or you know anything about and you have any suggestions, feel free to leave me a comment down below the video, or if you're listening on podcast, just shoot me an email to smokeyuncuffed@gmail.com and just give me your ideas, what you've done, how you've done it, and how you think it works. Our biggest issue here is probably not the accessibility of all the streaming things. Our biggest issue here is the internet. We live in a rural area in Oklahoma and the internet is horrible out here and we can't get super high speed stuff. We get good enough to watch it on one TV, but I don't think we could stream to several TVs at once. So I'm not sure what the answer is to that right now for us. They tell us it's coming, it's just not here yet, which is something I'm truly after. I'm after a really high speed internet because if I had an internet that would upload videos faster than what they do now, I would probably put more content out. Right now, when I do one of these podcasts and it goes for 30 minutes and I try to upload it at my house, 22 hours. Takes 22 hours to upload, and you better not be doing anything else on the internet because you won't be able to. It will slow everything down. So I have to go into town to upload everything. That gets old. That's the main reason though that I only put out one thing a week on everything I do. Just don't have the time to wait. Now we'll jump over here into my normal section where I tell you that nothing I'm about to say should be used as professional legal advice. If you do seek professional legal advice, you need to consult with an attorney because I'm pretty sure anything that I say on here, if you take it to court, they're just going to look at you cross-eyed because it isn't going to help you. So my first one's really a fairly easy one. I remember I was talking about that officer in Connecticut that was having a complete meltdown on this guy. Somebody asked me, what would you do in that situation if you were stopped and this officer is just melting down really for no reason because he's having a bad day? Well, it would be hard, but you just kind of have to do what he says and just try not to incite him anymore. Don't try to get him more riled up. I mean, that video, clearly this guy did something that was kind of boneheaded, but yeah, I think this guy went a little over the edge. I would just say comply. Don't try to resist anything he's wanting to do, because if he's recording, you're recording it anyway. If he charges you and takes you to jail and there's nothing really there that you've done, you can prove it. Now, if you're not recording it, I don't know. You know, I've mentioned on here before that I think this whole world is going to where you're going to have to put a dash cam on your car and record every action that you do, just so it's easier to prove, because the whole world has gone so technologically sound on this stuff that I don't think it's a bad idea for everybody to have a video camera in their car. I mean, as you can see, almost all officers, I mean, I would say 98, 99% of all police cars have video, rolling video. When I was on the highway patrol, we had it. Boy, I don't even remember when we got it. It was a long time ago. We've been recording traffic stops forever. And now they have body mics on so you can hear everything we're saying. I've been told that they're looking at doing some kind of body camera and mic, just do the whole thing. I saw one PD in California has bought cameras for their guns, so it fits right there on the slide where we put the flashlights on our pistols. It has a little camera system with a microphone, so you can see guns up, what the camera's doing, or what the gun's pointed at, what the officer's doing. You know, I don't think any of it's a bad idea. It's just kind of a cover your butt thing. That way you can show exactly what you were looking at and why you took care of it the way you did. Now, I don't think people as a whole need to be wearing this kind of stuff. I mean, I don't think it hurts if you are. It's just kind of odd. I'm not going to say that's not where it's going. Simply because of the amount of lawsuits, the amount of accusations that are getting put out there now that happened 5 years ago. This guy did this to me. Well, really? Why didn't you take care of it 5 years ago? This how-to movement, I don't disagree with it. They were wrong if they did it, but bring it up in a timely manner. Don't say 10 years ago this guy did this to me. Well, prove that. There's no way. And then you're going to gum up the legal system trying to prove something that you should have brought up 10 years ago. So back to the original question there. So yeah, I would just comply with him and be as understanding as you can and try to get through it as quickly as possible, and just try not to incite him any more than he is. I've seen officers get pretty upset on stuff, but this guy was flying off the handle. You got to Google it, see if you can find it. I think it's a Connecticut officer. Okay, so I had to stop and read some questions for a minute. So the next one's pretty simple. Somebody said they got stopped, presented their driver's license. Officer comes back, says your license is expired, and he was keeping it. Yeah, that's not exactly right. I'm not going to say that every state's the same way, but we never kept them in Oklahoma for just being expired. Now, if it was 5 years expired, maybe I might say, you don't need this anymore. But if it's just a couple of months expired, I'm not seeing that. Now, when you present a suspended or revoked license, yes, we can keep those. Because at that time, you're not supposed to be driving anymore anyway. And that license is now suspended from you. So at the end of your suspension, it will be mailed back to you, but those we could take. But as far as somebody taking your expired driver's license, I'm not quite certain that was the right course of action for the officer. Okay, the next one's pretty interesting to me. It's not something I've ever had to deal with, but this guy's saying that he's got some neighbors that keep flying a drone over his property and filming his property. Can he shoot it down? Well, I'm going to say no, unless you feel it's endangering you. If it's getting so close to you that it could hurt you, well, sure. I would say knock that dude down and move on and deal with whatever comes after it. But if they're flying at 100 feet above you, or a couple hundred feet above you, and filming what you're doing, yeah, to me it's somewhat of an invasion of privacy. That is something you really probably need to consult with like a deputy or a police officer. That's not something we've really dealt with on the highway patrol. And I mean, you see it coming. I know you're not supposed to fly these things over highways or within probably a couple hundred feet of any residence. And I mean, I know airplanes is 500 feet above person property. Maybe they use the same regulations. I don't know. I'm not real studied up on drone stuff, but yeah, I would see how it would be irritating if I'm trying to do something in my backyard and this guy keeps hovering around watching everything I'm doing. Well, don't be so nosy. Get away from my property. But I don't think you can just come out with the old shotgun and drop it, because now you've torn up somebody's, $200 or $300 drone, and how are they going to feel about that in court? Now, I don't know. I know in rural Oklahoma where I'm at, most of our judges would probably agree with the guy shooting the drone. I mean, but you're in small town America. Again, I would definitely consult law enforcement around that area before you took any action, simply because you're destroying somebody's property. I don't think because you own that property, you own the airspace too. Okay, this next one comes from, it's asking about something I mentioned in my last podcast about open carry. So here's the deal. Yeah, in Oklahoma, what the question is can I explain open carry, and wouldn't that make it turn into more of a Wild West situation? So, it could. It could. So open carry, you don't have to have a license in Oklahoma to open carry as long as you're not a felon and you can legally own a handgun. So the open carry is you put it on your hip where everybody can see it. And yeah, it could turn into the Wild West. You could have it where you go downtown and every person has a gun on their hip. Yeah, I don't think that's a great idea, but yeah, it could be that way. The problem that I disagree with that mass amount of people having a gun that quickly accessible is tempers. When people get upset and mad and they resort to that as their first go-to, man, we're going to have a lot of shootings. But most people are more sensible than that. Most people do not open carry. We also have concealed carry in Oklahoma, which most people do. You have to go get a little license for that, or you have to be retired law enforcement, as I am, and you can keep it covered up. That's the way I prefer to carry one, simply because I don't want everybody knowing I've got it. I don't want to be the first guy they go after whenever they're fixing to do something bad. Okay, and the last one here is one that has actually popped up since I've started doing this today. Where else I would have addressed this one early on in the podcast. They wanted my thoughts on all this destruction and tearing down of statues, monuments, all that stuff. Well, here's my thing. Once again, it goes back to private property and public property. You're destroying somebody else's property. It's not yours. So yeah, A, you're breaking the law there. B, what are you really accomplishing by taking these statues down? Regardless of whether these things are up and whatever they're representing, you're not going to erase history. You're not going to make it go away. So, I don't know. I don't think they should be tearing them all down, because it is our history. At some point, you start erasing all this stuff. At what point do you start telling kids, well, that wasn't a big deal. Don't worry about what we did in our history. Because that's what you're asking them to do. You're not making it go away. So that was the last question for this week, guys. So I'm going to wrap it up right here. If you guys haven't gone over and checked me out at Smokey CNC Woodworks, run over and check it out. I do a lot of cool woodworking stuff on there. And I do occasionally try my hand of doing non-CNC stuff. I did it here about 2 weeks ago. Didn't turn out great. As it turned out, most people didn't really want to see me doing that. They want to see me running the machine. So this week I went back running the machine. See, just like everybody else, I have to answer to the people. So if you haven't gone and checked out Smokey CNC Woodworks, run over to check it out. If you haven't gone to my website yet, SmokeyUncuffed.com. I have all my podcasts on there. I've got links to various things, and even have some of my snazzy t-shirts on there. And so with that, guys, I'm going to wrap this one up. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.